he sings Let It Snow, and then after Let It Snow, they revert back to the Ode to Joy. And then, of course, I told you when we started the film, the first time I ever heard Christmas in Hollis was in Die Hard. Mm-hmm. So that's, hey, why is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Because there's Christmas music in it that makes it a Christmas movie.
There's running themes of Christmas throughout it.
Yeah.
There's that, I wanted to bring this up. I'm glad I didn't forget it. But right, I think it's during that scene that I was saying was my favorite, when Rickman, right before he gets caught up by John, there's somebody's tagged Merry Chris.
Yeah.
It's not finished.
Yes.
But it's just like some random black shitty spray can tag that says Merry Chris.
Yeah, I noticed that on the wall when we were watching it.
It's like, why is it a Christmas movie? Because somebody they went through the effort of putting that in the film, because it is in fact a holiday movie.
That's right. The music cue, especially when Gruber falls at the end, which I hope this isn't part of your trivia.
I actually didn't do Swan Facts because you're my Swan Facts for tonight.
Okay.
This is your episode, so don't worry about stepping on my toes whatsoever.
Okay. So at the end of the film, and we'll get back to the music because there's two very, very great music cues at the climax of this film. At the end of the film, John's beat up and he's hurt and he's out of bullets. He has no bullets left in his I think it's an MP5 machine gun, and he only has 2 rounds left in his Beretta. And there's 3 guys. He knocks one of them out with the machine gun. And then he comes and gives up his machine gun when he sees that Gruber has his wife and he's holding her hostage. And he throws down his weapon, he holds up his arms, and they have a good laugh when he refers to the Yippee-Ki-Yay. They refer to John Wayne walking off into the sunset with Grace Kelly, which is, he corrects him and says Gary Cooper, and it's a reference to High Noon. And they have a good laugh and everything, and he holds his arms, behind his head, because he kind of is saying, or he's kind of giving himself up in order to save Holly, and the camera pans and kind of tilts down, and you see on his back that he has the gun taped to his back, which I believe is from the novel. I believe that scene is in the novel. And at the right time, when everyone's guard is kind of let down, he pulls the gun and he shoots the guy that was the guard downstairs in the lobby, and then he shoots Hans in the chest, it looks like.
I think he shoots Hans first because he has Holly.
Yeah, because he has Holly. He shoots him and he spins and he shoots the other guy.
In the head.
And then he does the cool thing where he blows the smoke from the barrel. And Hans stumbles backwards and crashes out the window. I think I read in the novel it's not his wife, it's his daughter, that the main character's daughter, and he grabs hold of her watch and actually pulls her out the window with him as he falls, so she falls to her death as well. But in the movie, in Die Hard, he grabs Holly and falls out the window, and he's hanging on to her watch, and John comes over and just trying to save her, and Hans raises his pistol to shoot maybe Holly, but I'm guessing he's going to try to shoot John. And as he raises his pistol, John manages to undo the clasp on the watch. God, we got to talk about Ellis. He manages to undo the clasp on the watch that Ellis had given her, or maybe that was Ellis. Ellis was the one that was really talking up the watch. Maybe it was Takagi that gave it to her, but undoes the clasp, and then Gruber falls. But the expression on Rickman's face is great because he was not expecting it. It's like he wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
And the reason the expression is so perfect because he wasn't expecting it to happen is because when they set up that stunt, they told Rickman they were going to drop him on the count of 3, but they dropped him on 2 instead of 3. So he wasn't expecting it, and that's why he has that look of total shock on his face, like as he's falling. And it's a great shot. It's a great shot of him falling, and the music cue as he's falling. I think it's like a horn, or a series of horns from the orchestra. That blast, and I don't know if they repeat it in Die Hard 2. I know it's in Die Hard 3. That music cue. And Gruber falls to his death.
That's a pretty nasty. Even when he falls out of the window, the way that he falls is very like uncoordinated.
Yeah, he's flailing.
Yeah, and it just looks nasty. And then he pulls her out, all kind of vicious.
Yeah,
and then when he falls, that kind of, it's almost like time slows down, and you really get to focus on him for a couple seconds, and then he drops in real time.
Yeah, which is a really good stunt because it looks awesome. I mean, that obviously was some green screen when he falls, when it's the close-up of him falling. But yeah, the shot of like him falling down the side of the building, that's for real. That's a real stunt, which is pretty awesome. But that's the expression on his face is real because they dropped him early, and the music cue is great. So he falls. John and Holly, they make it out. And that's where John runs into Powell for the first time, and they have their moment and their recognition, and they hug each other, and because each one helped the other throughout the night, helped them get out of it and helped them through. And then as Robinson comes up and is starting to complain about all the destruction and being a typical bureaucrat, John is ready to punch him, and that's when you hear screams, and you turn around and you see Carl, who was supposed to have been dead, come back. And
he kind of jumps out from beneath this blanket, so was he pretending to be a hostage?
Maybe. Yeah.
Because that's what it kind
of... Maybe that's how he got out. We should talk about... He fights Bruce Willis at the end, or during the climax of the film, and they have a really pretty brutal, nasty fight, and they're each beating each other up, and John McClane gets shot by his own weapon.
In the back, right?
I think it shoulder, yeah, because I think when you see him later on, he's got a...
But he's like kind of clipped or something.
Yeah. And he wraps... John manages to wrap the chain around Carl's neck and slides him down, so Carl is hanging, which I think is referenced in Last Action Hero. When I think Danny references that in Last Action Hero and says, "Oh yeah, like the guy in Die Hard that's hanging there. Do you think he's dead? But he's not." Which is a pretty good in-joke. I'll give Austin O'Brien that, even though he didn't write that. I wonder who did write that line. William Goldman. We talked about William Goldman on the top of the show, which he famously did a rewrite of Last Action Hero. So that gets a mention. But yeah, you think Carl is dead because he's hanging, and he comes out at the end, and that's when he tries to shoot John, and John and Holly take cover, and then you see the barrel of a gun shoot Carl multiple times. And then the camera pans down, and it's actually Powell that shot him. He pulled his weapon, and he shot him. Saved their lives, and maybe other lives as well.
And that's a really cool... It's kind of just effective writing coming or kind of closing off his... Because he tells McClane during their radio talk when he says that he had killed the kid.
And he wasn't on the street anymore because of that.
That he couldn't find it in himself to ever pull his gun out again. And that's him kind of coming to terms with, hey, I made this mistake, but now I've kind of redeemed myself by taking this person out.
He saves people's lives by doing it. And... That's a really good scene, like you said, to kind of close out his arc in the film.
Because I feel like besides him being the heart of the film, he doesn't really have his chance to shine in an action sense, and that's him kind of stepping forward and saying, "Hey, I can do this too." You know,
the music cue that's in that scene is not original music.
Oh, really?
That's actually, I think, what the story was a lot of times movies when they screen for the studio or test audiences, a lot of times they're not the final cut yet. You know, and sometimes like special effects aren't done, sometimes like the music isn't finished for the film yet, so they put in temporary tracks, you know, from other studio movies. And that track that was in there is from Aliens. It's from the climax of Aliens. I think the track is called Resolution in Hyperspace. It's the final track in I believe in the movie when Ripley jettisons the alien queen out through the airlock in Aliens. It's that music cue by James Horner, and they had that in there temporarily. And I think McTiernan did not like the music cue that Michael Kamen had written for that scene, so they left that piece of the James Horner score.
So how does that work? They just pay him for the use of that track?
Yeah. Well, Die Hard is from 20th Century Fox, as was Aliens. So I don't know if they pay James Horner or if the studio owns that music because it was written for a 20th Century Fox film.
I see.
But that's the temporary track that's in that, and they decided to keep it in because they liked that piece of music better than what the original score was.
Interesting. Can I tell you a little bit of Halloween trivia?
Of course you can.
So I know you're not a fan of H2O, and this might be one of the reasons why. It was the score. I forget the composer they had hired to do it. He had it written entirely original music for it, and they scrapped it all and used the original Scream, the Marco Beltrami, I think is
Beltrami. So it's not Marco Beltrami that did the H2O score.
No,
because I know he did a lot of the Dimension film.
No, that's
Dimension film scores.
Reused stuff from Scream.
Okay.
Because H2O probably happened because of the success of Scream.
But I love Scream, though. Scream's a great movie.
But yeah, when you listen to all the cues, it's all recycled stuff from Scream.
And it was a Dimension film as well, so Dimension Films probably owned that music. I don't think that they have to pay Beltrami for it.
But it's interesting because now there's all these bootlegs of these Halloween movies. Like, for example, they have the H2O film cut with the original music, which would be fun to probably watch and see if that makes a difference with the cue. Because I watched an interview with that composer saying how pissed he was that they just totally that he had cues that gave the film more emotion, I guess. And
that happens a lot more than you'd think.
And that they just didn't like it. But to have them scrap all of your music that's nuts.
I know that James Horner worked on Aliens, but I think his score for Aliens was like really chopped up, and things were moved around in the film that he hadn't scored exactly for that scene, and I know he was very upset about it. It's still his music in the movie, but his score got really chopped up and moved around in the film, and I know that he was very upset with James Cameron over that and refused to work with him again, and he didn't work with him again until Titanic. The James Cameron films that came out after Aliens, where I think Brad Fiedel did the music for him, who did the music for the Terminator, and then I think he did The Abyss and True Lies and Terminator 2, and it wasn't until Titanic came out that Cameron and Horner had made up, and then he scored Titanic and he scored Avatar for him. But I know that he was very upset that his score got chopped up. And I think that's happened with one of the Michael Mann movies too. Like, whatever the original score was, whoever wrote the original score was not happy with what Michael Mann did with it in the film, or had hired multiple people to do the score and used very little of what the original score that was commissioned originally. Used very little of that score. So, that music cue. Looping it back.